you choose to be one of the primary cause of the matters that life brings to you, regardless of the source. You choose to respond, and perhaps respond appropriately, so that it contributes to the integrity of your life. Basically, setting your life in such a way that at least it works for you.
Welcome, everyone, to the Being Framework Leadership Foundation series. I'm Enrique Acosta Gonzalez, and I am joined by Ash Kantashver as we begin episode 14, Being Framework Groundwork Module Recap. Now, in our previous episode, we covered what is transformation, the role of transformation in leadership, the Being Framework and transformation methodology, leveraging the Being Framework transformation methodology in action, the role of the conception worksheet in the process of transformation, and how to maximize the benefits of the transformation methodology. And I'm excited because this episode, we will be recapping what we have shared in the last 13 episodes. And Ashkan, I can't wait to get into this recap and the key points of the groundwork module.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Enrique. And thank you, everyone, for being with us for the last 13 episode. This is episode 14, as Enrique mentioned. We're going to have a groundwork module recap. So we're going to recap all the things that we've gone through in the last 13 episodes. And then from here, we'll go to module 2, which is basically going to be weekly discussions on very tangible, concrete leadership challenges as we live our lives, particularly in the scope of work, workplace, and organizations and teams.
And I can't wait to explore those topics because I know that a lot of those that have been following us up until this point are excited to get into the nitty gritty of what it is to have this thing called leadership as a day to day affair, and also how to integrate all the learnings that we've already had in the 13 episodes to add them now to subject matter that will help us on a day to day. So it's going to be a great conversation.
So often when it comes to leadership challenges, like yes, we can have discussions, we can have conversations, we can look into things from multiple different perspectives, obviously, but the groundwork was needed for us to create a mutual language, basically with the audience, and hopefully that is going to help us having generated uh, a level of trust and lead us to have effective communication as we go. Yeah.
Now, we have always reminded as we have gone through, but I'll remind everyone again this is part of a full access complimentary course found on the NGenesis website. It is under courses, Leadership Foundations. If you have not joined that course, I ask that you do that today. It is free, and you'll get the benefit of every one of these episodes piled into a course that's going to help your leadership journey.
Awesome. So, how about we quickly go through some of the episodes that we have? I mean, all of the episodes that we have that are listed on this playlist on YouTube and other platforms. So let's go quickly through each and every of them, see what high level topics we have covered. In episode 1, we've gone through challenging the definition of leadership. We discussed the three key elements of leadership in this Leadership Foundation series. So we will definitely talk about them today, those three elements. Then in the second episode, we went through integrity of our being, ontology, phenomenology, what they are, and then how our body work is basically leveraging that. The third episode was fulfilling your intentions as a leader, increasing the probability of our achievement, basically. In episode 4, we discuss how do we see matters in life. The exposure triangle, we unpack the exposure triangle around authenticity, awareness, and vulnerability. Episode 5 was on how to gauge the way you are being. We discussed how you can, what conception worksheet is, and how we can use this simple but very effective tool. Episode 6, we discussed how leaders own the shadow of others and leverage forgiveness. We discussed various leadership styles, and also we discussed multidimensional leadership in episode 7. In episode 8, we went through moods, modes of a state of mind, and their role in leadership. Episode 9, we discussed authenticity in leadership. In episode 10 and 11, combined in two parts, myself and Arya, alongside Enrique, we walked you through the origin and usage of being profile and the ontometric assessment tool associated with the being framework. In episode 12, it was mainly Arya and Enrique. They walked you through being profile and the process of self discovery and the possibility for you guys to experience self discovery course and complete your own being profile and then see yourself in this mirror and identify the shadow sides, the growth potentials, and so on. Um, in episode 13, we talked about transformation methodology, another layer to the being framework, unpacking the process of transformation. That's basically what we've covered there. And here we are. We are in episode 14 now, and we're going to do a kind of a recap of all the things that we have covered. Yeah.
And we started this series as we was going over the core elements of leadership. Now, I know you're going to go through those and the rest of those, but it's important to have that launch pad of integrity, responsiveness, and the state of surrender.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, the we discussed that there are three main components when it comes to leadership: integrity, responsiveness, and state of surrender. Simply put, when we're talking about integrity, we're talking about you being whole and complete. Now, not literally being whole and complete and perfect. That's not going to happen. Often matters in life and how we're relating to things, perhaps in not necessarily the most effective way. They get in our integrity of our being, integrity of our lives. But uh, from a being discourse perspective, we discussed that there are certain key qualities, particularly 31 different qualities that we discussed in the ontological model, and particularly moods and primary ways of being are directly contributing to our overall integrity. The health of our relationship with all of these moods and primary ways of being are directly contributing to the overall integrity, the health of our relationship with all of that, all of these qualities contribute to the overall integrity of our being. Secondary ways of being, things like qualities like assertiveness, proactivity, accountability, and so on, they indirectly contribute to our overall integrity. So we created a distinction around integrity of one's being. So that integrity is a state of being whole, complete, unbroken, sound, and in optimal condition. Integrity encompasses all primal aspects of being in the same way that the various limbs and organs are the constituent parts of your body. Integrity is the prerequisite to being effective and operating at the optimal level of performance and is fundamental to generating trust and workability. Integrity brings about ease and flow and is considered well-being, well put together, or the wellness of our being. So um, now, why we do need integrity? Because one of the reasons is because we want to generate workability. We want to increase the probability of us hitting our targets and fulfilling the intentions we care most about. So that's what integrity is, one of the key elements of leadership in the being framework. Yeah. So the second one was where we talked about responsiveness. Responsiveness is consciously and intentionally choosing from one's options to respond appropriately rather than reacting from one's impulses. Responsiveness is a way to avoid letting unnecessary barriers or temptations get in your way. It is a state in which you can interrupt yourself mid sentence and choose to manifest your healthy relationship with your aspects of being through your decisions, behavior, and actions. So, now, the name, or I mean, like when we say responsiveness, it may seem fancy, but at the end of the day, see, there's this traditional way of looking at human being, that like we're torn between good and evil, whatever they supposed to be. Yeah. Now we're not having a kind of a religious connotation here with this conversation. What I'm saying is traditionally this has been seen like that. Now, now, at the end of the day, it's like you have a sense of what good is, but then those good calls are constantly and permanently are being tempted. So now, if we're talking about a kind of a deontological or dictated moral framework, uh, lots of people may have reactions to it, but that's not what we're discussing here. This model is deliberately values free or judgment non-judgmental. Yeah, so it doesn't have much to do with morality. So you choose to take certain qualities that are um, proposed by the ontological model of the being framework seriously. Yeah. So you want to take responsibility seriously, your autonomy seriously, your freedom seriously. You want to take commitment seriously, authenticity seriously, and so on. And we have distinctions for each and every of these meanings that we're discussing here. Now, if you choose to take him seriously as part of your value structure, they're self-selected. Yeah. So you're looking into your life and you're seeing that the way that you currently are relating to your autonomy, responsibility, commitment, proactivity, assertiveness is not serving you. The moment that you have that reception, that see something is not working here, I'm stuck, this intention I have that I so care about, it's not being fulfilled by me. So it seems that the way that you are relating to these qualities are not necessarily working out for you. Now the moment that you have this understanding, you identify that, you recognize that, then you're going to seek alternative perceptions. You're going to seek alternative ways that you can relate to each and every of these qualities. Now, once that's done, once you have access to these alternative perceptions, then it's extremely important for you to relate it back to the context of your life, which is reception, perception, conceptions that we discussed in the previous episode. But then you want to ensure that you're responsive, meaning that you're not going to violate your self selected value structure now. And that's a very, very important thing. Yeah. So you, at some point, you choose not to be a passive victim to your life, as if like you are there and life is constantly occurring to you and you have no say, and you choose to relate to responsibility or autonomy quite differently. You choose to relate to it, to yourself as this active agent in life, that you have a say. It doesn't mean that you are the sole primary cause of the matters that life brings to you, but you are one of the you choose to be one of the primary cause of the matters that life brings to you, regardless of the source. You choose to respond, and perhaps respond appropriately, so that it contributes to the integrity of your life. Basically, setting your life in such a way that at least it works for you. Now, in that context, as a leader, you care about integrity, you care about identifying the constituent parts. What qualities matter, what qualities, if you have healthy relationship with, they're going to contribute into the overall integrity of your being and integrity of your life. And if you don't have a healthy relationship with them, if you don't relate to them in an effective manner, they're going to, on the contrary, they're going to compromise your integrity or the integrity of your life. So therefore, integrity as one of the key elements of leadership is tightly related to this conversation we're having around responsiveness or ontological responsiveness. If I know the constituent parts, if I choose to relate to them in an effective manner, and then it means that I'm adopting them as part of my value structure. The moment that they are part of my value structure, they're self-selected, then I don't want to violate my own values in a way. So, because the moment that you violate your own value and you're not being responsive, say if you are committed to be authentic in your interactions with the content of the word, with other people, with yourself, and if you constantly violate that, you're going to lose respect for yourself. And that's the last thing that you want to happen. It's going to impact your self-esteem. It's going to impact your self-worth. It's going to impact your confidence and so on. So, and more importantly, it's going to get in the way of your effectiveness and fulfillment of the intentions you care most about. So, therefore, the state of, oh, sorry, the quality of responsiveness is you being able to be on top of the game, being able to constantly catch the moment that you are violating or you're about to violate your own self-selected value structure. Partly, if you're tapping into the being framework, there are going to be um, coming from the distinctions within the ontological model, particularly around these 31 different aspects of being. If you have a healthy relationship with responsiveness, you're going to be able to catch yourself mid sentence once you're, when you're so at the verge of breaking down, when you're so at the verge of violating those values that you have chosen. And basically that's a quality that matters so much from a perspective of leadership. Does it make sense, Enrique? I've tried to capture it in as concise as possible because we've gone through all of these. But now that we have gone through all of the conversation in the last 13 episodes, I thought that our audience would have a more in-depth understanding of what is being discussed now in comparison with the time that the first time in the first episode when we brought the conversation up.
Yeah, absolutely. By this time, we've had enough conversation around the subject matter that it would make sense that integrity is one of the premier things that we are after. But I love how you put it. You know, it's not, and for those listening, it's not like the integrity that is defined by the world. It's as if you was a ship, right? Your wholeness, your how integral are you in terms of your daily dealings, and how you allow these other things as responsiveness and state of surrender that we'll cover here shortly.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Enrique. Yeah. So the last one, the third element of leadership is the state of surrender. The state of surrender is being in acknowledgement of matters out of one's control or complete influence. It is the state in which one is willing to let go of any attachment to a particular outcome, knowing there are other forces at play and that one is not the sole influencer, force, or determinator of priorities and outcomes. It is a state in which one is predominantly not pushing, forcing, striving, controlling, dominating, or manipulating. In the state of surrender, one lives life from the viewpoint that the individual is not the epicenter of existence and there is a higher will and volition that supersedes their individualistic views. This is also, I think, it was self-explanatory. We don't need to spend much time there. We've gone through that before. This is a recap session, but it's so important as a leader, particularly as a leader of an organization, a team. You so know if you want to be vulnerable, open, and authentic that you're not having 100% control over everything. You're not the only one who set the priorities for yourself and for your team and the outcomes. So basically, we need to know that there are other forces at play. Now, it seems so obvious, but in action, when we get stuck in the mounting things in life, day-to-day challenges, we so neglect that, and that's the source of our frustrations a lot of times. When we forget that, for example, if you're an entrepreneur, if you have a business, you have an organization, um, the market changes, the platform of economy changes, the reserve bank is going to make certain decisions, the interest rate is going to go higher. Um, at some point, it comes down. The currency that as the medium of exchanging value is going to fluctuate. Inflation is there. Recession is there at times, and so many other things, including like you may lose key team members to many different things, and you're not in full control. Yeah, you're not in full control of even your own emotions, let alone other people's emotions and the decisions that are going to make. Now, the leadership here is like doing our best to um, be able to conceive the matter enough so that you can manage to influence them as best as possible and respond appropriately to the matters that life brings to you, again regardless of the source. Now, we've gone through all that, so let's talk about the books again one more time. The being framework is a framework that has three different layers. We go through it very shortly again, but basically, the framework is articulated in two books. Um, the ideal for a beginner, a person who's going to start looking into the framework, if you've gone through all of these episodes and everything so far, my suggestion would be starting with the Human Being book, which is actually my second book, not the first book, but Human Being book. Illuminating the reality beneath the facade is basically there to support you, as the cover page says, the book cover says, decoding the fundamental qualities that derive our behavior of decisions, behaviors, and result. I would suggest that you can start looking into the Human Being book. It is written in a kind of more linear narrative that is comprehensible to an average reader to start with. But then, if you develop interest and you want to go way more deep into the framework, then I would suggest you to read my first book, which is still not a philosophical book or overly technical book in most part, but it goes way more in depth. The Human Being book is around 350 pages, just for you to know a scale of it, and then the Being book is close to 700. So massive difference. So the books are there, all the distinctions are there if you want to access them. Now, in the book, particularly Human Being book and Being book, uh, we go through the framework. So, the framework has three layers. In the ontological model, which basically, in a simple language, there's this list of key fundamental human qualities, not just behaviors. Yeah, because if it's basically you're identifying tangible behaviors in details and then go through them, the technical term for it is ontic model, ontic with ONTIC. Yeah, that's a technical term that's used. But when we say ontological model, we go way more in deeper. We go and talk about the deep primal fundamental qualities here. Yeah. So, for example, anxiety. So therefore, the one layer of the framework is the list of these key fundamental qualities and the relationship that holds true between them. Each and every of these qualities, they have distinctions. We'll bring up one again in this recap session so that we are so on the same page before we wrap up the first module. Transformation methodology is the second layer, which basically once you understand your relationship or one's relationship with an aspect of being, let's say, for example, with responsibility or commitment, then uh, how we can manage to transform our conception of that very quality or aspect of being, and how we can act upon it quite differently, and how we can actualize and activate that uh, soon to be adopted value um, in our consciousness. Then we have the series of tools layers, but at the heart of the tool sits the being profile, which is the ontometric assessment tool that basically supports an individual or a team to see the health of the relationship with every single aspect of being, and it does more, but we don't go through it here. So these are the three distinct layers of the framework. Now, yeah, so this is basically the list of the qualities categorized in this four layer construct. So this is what we refer to as the being framework ontological model. So we also discussed the projection process. The projection process, for those of you who are seeing the screen, it's there. And then for the rest of you, if you're watching, sorry, if you're listening on other platforms that you only have access to the audio, ensure that you join the course and on Genesis platform. All the slides that we are going through, it's basically there you can access all of these diagrams and everything, but I'll try to explain it in such way that you don't necessarily need to look into it. So if you imagine that you're being this, as you're living your life, you're being in across time, yeah. So we discussed that you're not just a single person, you're not an individual person that is being thrown into this world in a one-off manner. You're constantly being projected into this life, and you're projecting yourself. What does that mean? It's like you're constantly, like a drop of water, you are being dropped into the ocean of existence, if you want to put it in a kind of metaphoric manner. And as you constantly project yourself through your uh, being there out in the world, through your decisions and the behaviors, you're going to have a kind of ripple effect. As you're being there and interacting with the other content in the world, um, you are behaving, and this behavior has an impact. What you say, the decisions you make, and the behaviors you manifest, the actions you take, they're going to have an impact on the other things as we share this thing called life with others, other human beings and other beings as well. Now, so we discussed that there is this mysterious part to each and every of us, what we call it unique being or distinct being. That's a sheer mystery. We don't know what exactly that is, and we just know that there's something there, not necessarily fixated at such, but there's something within every single person, and as part of our self-discovery in self-awareness journey in life, our conception of that very innate thing sitting there evolves as we go. So that's there. That's a thing to be manifested out there. That's a thing to be projected out there. Now, as we were projecting ourselves in this projection process, then there are layers. For example, moods would be like the very first one. and then the primary ways of being, and then the secondary ways of being, all the way goes to the decisions we make, the behaviors we manifest, and all of these decisions and behaviors, they're going to lead to certain consequences or um, outcomes or results that you're going to produce. Yeah. Now, in order for us to bring it home, let's create this example. So we said that imagine that you are in a heated argument with your spouse, with your partner, with another person. So there's something for you. There's this urge. There's this thing that you want to communicate. Yeah. But then let's take this in a kind of a slow motion manner. What's going to happen here is you're going to the very first layer in this projection process would be the moods. For example, your dominant mood or mode of a state of mind is going to be anxiety. You immediately are going to go, oh, wait a moment. If I say this thing that I want to say, it may result into bigger disasters. Again, for example, my partner is going to leave me and the situation is going to be escalated, etc., etc. You go through lots of what ifs. What if this? What if that? And so that's the mood playing its role in the background. Yeah, as you're disclosing yourself, as you're about to make a decisions and act upon it, the way that you're relating to anxiety as a mood, one of the primal aspect of being, plays a major role. Then it goes to the next layer, yeah. Before it turns to a behavior, we're still going gradually, yeah, in this process. It may impact your authenticity. For example, one of the manifestations of authenticity is like you 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 have a sense of self, you have a self image, you know what you are about to say, what you wish to say, but then you go, wait a moment, if I say this as I want, it can create certain types of problems. So now depends on your relationship with authenticity. Then again, um, you may suppress that expression of self. It can apply to other primary aspects of being in that layer as well. For example, freedom. Your freedom may be impacted. Your self-expression as another aspect of being is going to be impacted. Your presence is going to be impacted, like the other person is talking to you, but you're not even hearing, you're not listening, you're not making yourself present to what is being said there because you're dealing with all these internal dialogues and the conversations that's going on there. But again, from outside, the other person cannot really tell what's going on inside your mind. These are still subtle. So far we discussed moods and primary way of being. Now it goes to the secondary way of being. For example, assertiveness. Yeah. So assertiveness depends on your relationship with assertiveness. All that is built up by now from based on your relationship with your mood, let's say anxiety in this scenario, and authenticity, self-expression, presence, and freedom in the primary ways of being layer, then they're going to contribute to your relationship or how you're relating and about to act upon on assertiveness. Now, you maybe depends on your relationship. For example, if you don't necessarily have a healthy relationship with assertiveness, um, you may swing from this to this side of pendulum and be overly agreeable, very submissive, and you're going to suck it in. You're going to not say the thing that you wanted to say and leave the room, go sit in your solitude, start crying, hating the other person, hating yourself, hating other people, and generalize and be the victim, keep victimizing yourself, go through self sabotage. Now, if you're swinging to this other side of unhealthy relationship with assertiveness in this scenario, would be being overly disagreeable, being aggressive or even violent. Yeah, and these things happen. Um, this is not a kind of a theoretical conversation. We all know that these things happen. And yeah, so that aggression may come out. You may insult that person. You may shout or yell at that other person, because you don't have the freedom or authenticity, or that healthy relationship with self-expression, uh, and healthy relationship with anxiety to overcome that and communicate the things that you want to communicate. And you may be aggressive. You may yell at them, insult them, throw something at them, or at some severe cases it can become, unfortunately, physical. So basically, this is a kind of pattern of these layers as we discuss what's there for you to, and you have the urge to communicate. And depends on your relationship with various different aspects of being in these four different layers. Then you end up communicating something. You will end up um, um, making a decision and taking an action, manifesting your behavior, and that is going to be, um, depends on your health of your relationship with all of these. The result or the consequences are going to be radically different, as you can see. Yeah. So I hope that this makes sense. We've gone through it again before. This is a recap, but do you have anything you would like to add, Enrique?
No, all those points are valid and many for us to consider, especially as we're dealing with this human-human relationship and the execution of the best version of us, right? How we want to not only live by, but allow to live through us, and these are great qualities and points to make.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So, and now I would like to also add this thing that life is not all about these 31 qualities. We discussed it before, why these 31 different qualities have been chosen through my studies. But yeah, so we discussed that, like, we there are so many different content, whether there are material content, materialistic content, sorry, things like the dog, the cat, the car you buy, um, the physical elements in the nature, or if there are metaphysical abstract concepts or meanings. Yeah, things like marriage, things like authenticity, God, mother, and all the other things that basically are there, any idea or any concept out there. So you already are relating to many of them in one way or another. So so that's what we do as human beings. We create all these categories, semantic categories in our memory as we grow up. Now, but not all of us relate to all of these ideas and meanings and concepts in a similar manner. Our perceptions are quite different. Now, when it comes to the being framework, particularly the ontological model, so we have these 31 different qualities that are categorized into this four layer construct, as we mentioned a couple of times. So, and that's basically what we are focusing on. Now, these qualities are so primal that the depends on how you relate to them, particularly how you relate to authenticity, vulnerability, and awareness itself. Then it can impact the way that you relate to other qualities, ideas, meanings, and concepts out in the world. So now, because when we have the ontological model, we said that we're not defining what these qualities are. It's not a matter of definition. We brought up the conversation around distinction. We said that this is what we mean when we use the word responsibility, let's say, or commitment. Yeah. So we're not making you wrong. These are alternative perceptions available that you can look into and then see if they're going to serve you better in comparison with the existing perception or conception that you have of these qualities. So what we've done in the framework, we've created these distinctions for each and every of these aspects of being. Yeah. So in this course, we haven't gone through all of them, but here and there we brought some examples so that you get familiar with what these distinctions are and how you can read them. And we mentioned that if you're interested to go through all the distinctions available, like you can definitely go and see them in the books. And not only there's the whole chapter on each and every of these qualities, let's say authenticity or commitment or responsibility. In that chapter, you're going to have the distinction as well as uh, the elaboration on that distinction in the whole chapter. You can also go through the self discovery course. We have an episode with Arya on that. As part of the self discovery course, not only we're going to instruct you how to do the course, what the foundation to the whole course is, but also you go through your you go and complete your being profile, and you're going to see the scores you're going to get, that there are the indications of the health of your relationship with each and every of those 31 aspects of being, and more insight that you can gain from that. So these are the ways that you can go and access all of these distinctions, and perhaps gauging the health of your relationship with them. And obviously, then you can work with trained professional practitioners and coaches. That's a separate conversation. At the end, I'll talk a little bit about them as well. What sort of things are available from here? So if you look into this distinction, this is a distinction of responsibility. The distinctions, they have three paragraphs, as we've gone through them before in this series. Paragraph one uh, tries to depict a picture of what that quality is. What do I mean when I talk about responsibility? Again, this is not to make any other perceptions available of on uh, a responsibility wrong. This is basically to say that whenever I talk about responsibility, what do I mean? What I mean, and when, for example, you do your being profile, what is it that is being measured? Yeah, and obviously we discussed where those qualities and distinctions are coming from, and the references and so on. We don't go through that again, or basically why even these distinctions we consider them being effective. Uh, yeah, so basically they're coming from my interpretation of how the highest achievers mainly relate to them. And the second paragraph is the health. It's an indication of the healthy relationship with that distinction, and the last one, the third paragraph, depicts a picture of how the unhealthy relationship with that particular aspect of being can uh, be. Yeah. Okay. So another concept we've gone through was exposure triangle. Uh, the exposure triangle is this analogical language I'm using that basically is coming from photography. We discussed that. In photography, we have this thing called exposure triangle. It's these three major settings and configuration of parts that contribute into taking a really crisp, sharp, high quality, um, clear snapshot of reality. You know, so I'm using this analogy. So these three elements are aperture, shutter speed, and ISO in cameras. Now, similarly, when it comes to us relating to a content or an idea or a thing in life, um, our relationship with awareness, vulnerability, and authenticity matters, similar to that aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. Um, Awareness is like how much light is being let into the lens. Yeah. Now, Light here being the true, authentic, congruent knowledge that basically we assume that we need in order for us to be effective, because we know we cannot become effective in something we are unaware of, at least intentionally. Intentionally. So, yeah, how much light is being let into the lens is what your relationship with awareness is. Now, when it comes to authenticity, authenticity is more like, okay, now that you are trying to understand something, now that you're trying to know something, how lenient or fickle you're going to be, really. Are you going to be a typical thinker, whatever comes to your mind, whatever an influencer external influencer is basically planting in the garden of your mind is just going to stay there and grow, or no, you are this critical thinker. You have a level of positive intellectual skepticism that you want evidences. You want to basically look into why you should choose this perception over another perception. So authenticity is more like the ISO in cameras. Is how sensitive is the sensor to light? Yeah, how lenient you're going to be, or on the other side, how rigorous you're going to be in accepting what is to be considered true or valid or accurate. Yeah. So combined, I often use this term. I say authentic awareness, which basically I'm referring to having a congruent or developing a congruent conception of various different fragments of reality. And and fundamentally, like in the framework, we find that extremely important, because if you don't have authentic awareness around the matter, it's very unlikely for you. You cannot increase the probability of you hitting your target, and hence that's going to lead to dysfunction, and not workability. Now the third one is our relationship with vulnerability. So vulnerability is one of the moods, um, one of the four moods. We discussed that before. Vulnerability is more like the shutter speed, yeah, and more like the shutter speed in cameras. How long will the shutter be open? This determines how much light is let into the sensor. So, so when, if for example it's night, low light condition, you're trying to take a photo of the sky or the moon, and very likely you need the special lens, and also you need to keep the shutter in the camera to stay open for quite a good time, so that it can capture um, a vivid, clear picture or snapshot of that part of reality out there. Similarly, when it comes to us and our consciousness and the way that we relate to matters, unless we are vulnerable and open and bring this epistemic humility to um, consider things from multiple different perspectives, to consider and the opinions of the experts, and bringing all that is possible, so that then we can synthesize and land on that authentic awareness that we say. If you're not open, if you're not vulnerable, if you're not living life from the point of vulnerability, um, and openness, that is going to be almost impossible. So hence vulnerability plays a very, very major role. Just to save time, we don't go through the reading the distinctions of vulnerability, but I would highly recommend you in this context, as we're talking about it, read through it. We ensure that we put it in the slides, so that you can have access to it for this episode. Yeah.
Now, Ashcan, we also uh, went over the fulfillment pyramid, and very great points when we covered that in that episode. But I would love for you to hash that again, as it is important to this whole discourse.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay. So when we talk about the being in general, so one of the question is like, okay, why? Why butter? Yeah. Why should be going through? Because transformation is hard. Like letting your existing perceptions and conceptions being confronted and disturbed and challenged, it's hard. So you may go, why? Why butter? The thing is, one of it's not the only reason, but one of the major reasons is we all have, it's a common human experience that we all care about certain things. Yeah. We may not necessarily care about the exact same things, but we all have things that we care a lot about. There are priorities. We so want them. And this is also another phenomenological or a common human experience that when we care about something, we care about an intention, we so want it to be fulfilled. Now, you may want to ask me why, but that's a completely different conversation. We don't want to go there to save time. But we know that we care about things, and then when we care about things, we want them to be fulfilled. Now, in order for us to fulfill our intentions or be effective in fulfilling our intentions, the intentions we care most about, we want to be or we need to be effective. We need to be effective in us trying to understand them well. We need to be effective in our endeavors, in the decisions we make, and in the actions we take. In order for us to be effective, then we need to be integrous, meaning that, like any other system, not that I'm downgrading human being, reducing human being just to a system, but in great part, we are a system, a very complex system. So therefore, in order for us to be effective, we need to be integrous, meaning that when we need to have our constituent parts that they shape the whole, let's say, for example, in our consciousness, the way that we are relating to each and every key quality or aspect of being in this context, um, um, to be refined, polished, or healthy, if you like. So, so therefore, when we talk about being integrous or being of integrity, meaning that in the substrate, intellectual substrate in our mind, in our consciousness, we are relating to each and every of these aspects of being in an optimal level, yeah, in an effective manner, in a healthy manner. And yeah, so basically that we need to have. Now, you cannot be integrous in your consciousness, yeah, of your being or in your actions, um, unless you are aware of these constituent parts. So therefore, awareness also comes to play. So um, we need to be able to identify these constituent parts, and then we need to identify the parts that we don't necessarily have healthy relationship with, the shadow parts, the troubled sides, and relate to them as growth potential and go and continuously address them so that this journey of a transformation um, uh, uh, contributes to our overall integrity so that we can have that effectiveness. If I want to recap, is like we know that our authentic awareness of different constituent parts that they contribute to our overall integrity matter. So basically, we want to become aware of all of these distinctions in the context of what we're discussing here. We want to become aware of these perceptions or the distinctions that we are basically putting forward. We want to see how healthy relationships with them may look like, and we want to then address them so that by becoming more integrous, aware and integrous, then we can produce higher degree of effectiveness. Ultimately, why we bother? Because we care, and when we care about something, we want to um, increase the probability of our fulfillment. That's basically why we care about all this. So this is basically what has been covered in the discussion we had around fulfillment pyramid. So I would like to use this opportunity now that we're talking about all this to re-emphasize um, on the meta factors we have: awareness, integrity, and effectiveness. We are constantly um, relating and interacting with the content of this world, including other human beings out there in the world and other entities. So our awareness of each and every of these entities matter, and the accuracy or authenticity or congruence of our understanding matters too. Awareness is our intentional consciousness. When we bring our attention to something, try to um, shape as congruent or authentic conceptions of that very thing as possible, because we know that awareness is going to lead into our overall integrity, and the overall integrity is going to lead to higher degree of effectiveness. We're going to constantly find ourselves in a kind of constant dance between a degree of awareness or intentional consciousness to a degree of um, effectiveness. Yeah, and what sits in the middle is integrity. Yeah, now integrity is not a kind of a fixated quality. It's not like we have integrity in a sense, because constantly in both internal and external matters and forces, they challenge that ideal state of integrity. But a person who has a healthy, polished sense of integrity would uh, identify that when they're slipping, when it gets slippery or they're sliding away from this state of integrity, and they restore that, and that basically contribute to their um, overall performance and effectiveness. If I want to give an example, it's like, for example, like if you have never ever exercised in your life as a person, you may not have a sense of that physical health in a sense, yeah. But a person who's been exercising for a while, and then they have that sense of lightness. They know how it is when like you have your muscles stretched properly, when you have a proper amount of muscle mass, when the proportion of body fat is optimal, etc., etc. You have a sense of that, and then if for a while you don't exercise and you let yourself go, you can compare, and you know that you're off track, and then you can, if you have a healthy relationship with integrity, then you want to restore that. Yeah.
Great information there, Ashcan, as we recap that portion of the episodes that we had covered. But the transformation methodology is something that's intriguing to me as we covered the awareness application and effectiveness. But I wanted you to go through that and recap that portion as well.
So see, when it comes to values, when it comes to different qualities, like human qualities, like we have a number of them in the ontological model. But to be quite frank, we're not in shortage of um, values, or we're not in shortage of qualities, human beings qualities that we can discuss. And my studies also show that when I looked into cross-cultural studies, it seems that almost all cultures, they so care about courage. All cultures, they know, and they have a sense of what authenticity would look like. Now, I'm not saying that we have an exact same understanding, but relatively, you can find lots of commonalities. Commonalities amongst the highest achievers when I looked into them. When I looked into the commonalities amongst cultures, so that's there. Yeah. To the point that one of the criticism that can be drawn so easily to this body of work, particularly with regards to the ontological model, would be, oh, what's new here? These are just common sense. Well, my response is yes, it's common sense, but it's not very common. Now we have empirical data to show that, see, it's not very common for us human beings actually to be assertive, while we need to, perhaps. Yeah. Uh, the we know that we're not being authentic or vulnerable. We have empirical data on it. Over 3,500 records now that we have, people completing the being profile from the time of commercialization, and we have more data before that. So therefore, uh, we know that we're not necessarily in shortage of values or human characteristics in the sense of what all of these things mean. What we are actually in shortage of is methods to have them stick, to actualize them, and to have these human qualities, or if you want to call them values, be active, be activated and realized in our societies, in our lifestyle, in our real um, life, in a way. Yeah. So transformation methodology matters, or transformation in general, like the process of transformation matters because we once we shape a sense of what, for example, authenticity is, or responsibility is, or commitment is a good one. Yeah, because I think that everyone understand what a promise is, or how you may relate to your promises. Yeah, when you give your word to something, to, if you make a commitment, are you going to stick to it, stick by it, or not? You're going to constantly break it. So um, the thing is, once that perception is clear, and then how does that perception relates the context of your life, then you want to actually see it being activated in your life. And there is a massive gap between knowing and being able to execute upon, or act upon the way that you know something. Yeah, and that's exactly where transformation methodology comes in. We obviously, this was the latest conversation that we had, so I don't go much through it because it was episode 13 where we've gone through all of these. So I would encourage our audience to go through that episode. And this is a recap again quickly. So there are three phases here. We can see this whole process is iterative, meaning that it's not one off. It just keeps going. It's an ongoing process. So we have awareness, we have application, and we have effectiveness being produced as a result of that. So we constantly go through these phases within awareness. We reception, perception, conception. Reception is when your attention is being drawn into something. It can be like what you read on a billboard, a verse in uh, a sentence in a book, a verse in a poetry, some conversation that you have with your friend, a stranger on the street, or a part of a movie you watch, or it can be what I call abductive revelation, meaning that you have thoughts striking you, um, and from unknown sources. So whatever basically it is, like you get receptive around particular matter. Now you're paying attention. And then you go and then you try to perceive it as best as possible. You're going to tap into your perceptual structure, try to understand it as much as possible. You may go and then see if there are established perceptions of that very thing is there. So let's say, for example, you're receptive now to marriage or building a partnership. So far it was not even in your consciousness. You're not caring about that, and now it's a thing for you. Then you go in and try to see what existing perceptions of marriage or relationship and partnership is there, and you're going to look into different ones, and then you may pick uh, one perception that is readily available there. But then the next step is when you develop conception. Conception is way beyond just perceiving something. It's not an immediate choice. It's when you tap into deeper, more advanced mental processes and capabilities that you have. For example, you may go through comparison, analysis. You may reflect, you may contemplate, you look in retrospect, you look into the historical narrative of something, look into the precedences, etc., etc. And then you relate that very thing you're trying to understand, let's say in this case, marriage or relationship, back into the context of your individualistic life, what matters to you. So yeah, you go through that, then you have an initial developed, to a degree evolved conception, uh, and then you go and act upon it. Yeah, you go and act upon it. So let's say, if, for example, we're taking commitment as an example. We had it in the previous episode. it is being brought to your attention that you constantly break your promises, and it's impacting your brand at work with your spouse or whatever. Very, very. And then you go and then you look into different ways you can perceive um, commitment differently. For example, you may be introduced to the being framework as we're doing it here, and you may read the distinction commitment, or someone brings it to your attention that this is an alternative way you can relate to commitment. And then you're going to make it relatable to the context of your life through conception. Now, this is exactly where we discuss conception workit very soon. I think we can go through that the tool that we have, conception worksheet, because it's very related. But yeah, once you have that conception of, let's say, commitment, then you're going to make a promise here, going to the application phase. You're going to act upon that. You're going to execute. You're going to make this promise that, so from right today, I'm going to track myself. I'm going to promise myself that whenever I make a commitment, I'm going to take my time, not say my yeses and nos quite immediately, or be compelled to say yes. I'm going to take my time, consider the scope of work, whatever it is, and not break my promise. Yeah, and then you're going to track it. You're going to track it, and you're going to see there are times that you break your promise you made to yourself or others, and you're going to track that. Very soon we'll show you how the conception worksheet can come into play, and then you're going to learn from that, and then you're going to refine it, and then you're going to execute it again. As you go through this process of transformation, there comes a time that your effectiveness, the degree of your effectiveness is going to increase. Yeah, so you become competent in that profession, in that to the point that you're going to gain mastery. Now, this applies on any kind of thing that you want to learn, but here particularly we'll talk about these fundamental qualities. We call them aspects of being. So this is basically what the transformation methodology is high level. Yeah. Now we touched on conception worksheet. So this is a simple tool that we have. Conception worksheet. We said that you put that aspect of being here. Let's say, for example, in this scenario, commitment. We discussed it just now, and then you're going to give it time frame. Let's say, for example, a week. Yeah, and then you're going to uh, as you made that promise to yourself, and then you're going to track, let's say after a week you're going to look in retrospect and then see, are they instances that you couldn't fulfill your promise? And very likely there are. If you are vulnerable and authentic enough, you should be able to develop your sensitivity so that you can find those instances, and then you're going to list them here. And it can be like, oh, I made this promise to my colleague to provide that document, to complete that document so that they can send it to the potential client, but you didn't do it on time. Now, the consequences. So, what are the consequences? You're going to make yourself present to the consequences that your lack of commitment has generated. And immediately, instead of succumbing to that and be so negative, you're going to go, okay, wait a moment. What would be the alternative way that I could have gone about this? And this is exactly where looking into the distinction and seeing healthy and unhealthy relationship with each of these aspects of being, particularly here we're talking about commitment, matters so much. It can really help you seeing that picture. I know that this may seem simplistic, but believe me, we know that this works, and it causes transformation. It changes things. So yeah, you're going to come up with the alternatives, and then you're going to predict what kind of outcome or result, mainly positive and constructive results, is going to create if you um, act upon that, act that alternative out. Yeah. So this is basically the tool that we introduced called conception worksheet. As now we're talking about authenticity, I know that's a kind of a buzzword. Lots of different people talk about it. It's a kind of a word that it's quite overloaded and to a degree bastardized. Yeah. So when we are talking about authenticity, we're not necessarily talking about you being genuine, or that's a kind of a manifestation of what we're discussing here. Or we're not necessarily just talking about you being the real you, whatever that real you is supposed to mean, but beyond that. Yeah. So we introduced this thing called authenticity quadrant. um, so when we're talking about authenticity, again, we're talking about the congruence of your conceptions of various different fragments of reality. um, that's basically what we're talking about. Or in some cases, we're talking about the practicality of what works and what doesn't, because sometimes we're not talking about tangible um, um, physical matters. See, for example, if there is a snake, we discussed that if there's a snake, you perceive it as a piece of rope. Um, uh, which view is going to be congruent? That's testable, and that's as Karl Popper would say, the philosopher of science, um, uh, it's falsifiable. We can falsify that. If, for example, you perceive it as a piece of rope, but then we actually know it's a snake, that's something that we can prove. But then there are times that when we're discussing abstract constructs, and that's not as easy as possible. And authenticity there is where we know that it works. Yeah. Now, so when it comes to authenticity quadrant, um, we 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 talked about um, um, self-image. We said that a part of our authenticity has to do with the conversations you have with yourself about yourself. You know, that's how you see yourself. That's your self-image. And also, we have uh, this thing we call persona, the conversations you have with the word about yourself. That's what you project out there, and that's how you want to be seen. Yeah. So let's say, for example, in the business world, that would be considered branding. Now, then we have beliefs. Um, Now, again, like these are not the things that I'm defining. I'm just basically using these words, and I'm giving you distinction, like what I mean when I use that word. Yeah. Conversations you have with yourself about the word, those are your beliefs. And then we have opinions, conversations you have with the word about the word. So combined, uh, these are all these perceptions and conceptions that we have about ourselves, about the word, and then how we interpret them, and then have those conversations again to ourselves or to the word. And so this would give you a kind of a better, more accurate picture of what we mean when we talk about authenticity here. Another conversation we had was around authenticity gap. Yeah. And that also matters so much. For we said that if we consider you um, being, let's say, here at a point in your life, there is a reality around you. Yeah. Now, often we have this phenomena that our self-image can be below that. You know, then that can be a source of lack of self-esteem or self-worth. Let's say it can manifest itself into that. It's like, due to your relationship with awareness authenticity, you cannot you're not relating to yourself as you are actually. So here is this creates a kind of a gap that your self-image is below the actual you. And at the same time, then you may choose to fill that gap by creating and projecting an exaggerated persona. Yeah. So again, this is you, and then you're going to create this bloated, exaggerated persona, putting it out there. Now, if you consider that there's a gap between the real you and the self image that you hold, yeah, and there's another gap between the real you and the persona that you project. The aggregation of these two gaps, from self-image to real you or authentic you, from authentic you or real you, and a persona, that creates a massive gap with regards to your self-image and persona. Now, why this matters? Because like if you're not relating to yourself in an authentic manner and you're not projecting an authentic persona out there, you are risking losing arguably the greatest asset that you have, the rarest asset that you have, which is you, the real you. This is exactly where I talk about this thing. I say that you may be the one who could sing the song that no one else could, or you could be the one who could invent this device that no one else could. The thing is, the combination of all these qualities that you have, from the innate qualities all the way to how you relate to every single aspect of being, is unique to you in a sense. And if you don't manage to tap into your own unique being, your talents and qualities, and combination of the way that you're relating to your various different aspects of being, if you're not relating to that in an authentic manner, it's a kind of a strong word that I'm going to use, but it's like you're murdering the real you. You're not letting the real you express itself out in the world. And um, and the word with you and without you is different, because everything starts from our personal reality, your imagination, whatever is going on in your consciousness, and your then your ability to put that and articulate it in a kind of a format that it's communicable to the outside world. That's exactly where you get the chance through your leadership to actually expand the shared layer of reality, basically bringing whatever it was personal reality to the shared layer of reality and having it there impacting the world and being negotiated to the point. Yeah. So that's exactly how many of the devices that you use, many of the constructs that are impacting you out there, they are manufactured by people like yourself in a way. So, and then through that self-expression, projection, through your authenticity, there can be a sense of meaning, purpose in life. So that's why, again, authenticity matters. Yeah, with regards to your self-image and persona. And in a broader sense, authenticity matters uh, because it's going to indicate the congruence of your understanding of whatever basically is going out there with how actually things are. And if we have incongruent understanding of anything, we cannot produce workability. We cannot let our understanding, our awareness contribute to the overall integrity of our lives, setting our life in such way that we have that financial prosperity and health that we want, the physical health that we want, the mental health that we want. Basically, that will get having inauthenticities and not addressing them um, uh, contribute into more and more shadows in our life and letting the shadows running the show. So all of these shadows at the end of the day, they stem from inauthenticities and our incongruent understanding of matters. Now, we've gone through all that in these 14 episodes now. I hope that us discussing that helps you, our audience, to um, see how you can benefit from the framework and this body of work. I would like to encourage you again to look into my latest book, which is a fiction book. We talked about it, Becoming, the Becoming series of books. So this book um, will be a series. So there will be more books in this series. The story of Joran Haley is going to continue. This first book is called The Emergence of Being. It is the time that Joran, the main character in this book, in this story, uh, going beyond that surface level success that he has produced so far, that lucrative career, corporate career that he has, that relative financial stability that he thinks that he has created, and his loving fiance. So um, so Yoren's deep desire has always been to build his own business, but it was not necessarily the techniques of business building that was getting in his way, but it was his being, yeah, how authentic he was in his understanding of the word, how vulnerable and open he is to let other people contributing to what extent he's letting himself to tap into other people's knowledge and resources and leveraging that so that he can push himself forward in life, and so many more deep subtle qualities that basically we have in the being framework, particularly being framework ontological model. So Yoren is um, a person who is resisting everything, has lots of opinions, has views on all different matters, and his intellectuality, you would like, if we can say, is getting in his way of growth. And so we don't want to spoil the story, but Yoren's character, when I was developing Yoren's character, I led all of these anonymous, mostly anonymous stories of all of these art coaches that work with people being shared with me. I had lots of interactions with so many different people, and I found the commonalities, how people may respond or react to their existing perceptions being confronted and their vulnerabilities being challenged, and because this whole conversation around the being discourse is not something that the um how can I say, your existing perceptions and paradigm is going to be challenged. Not everyone loves that, but at the same time, and when you look into the results that they've produced, like in multiple different dimensions of our life, those are the indications of how well you have performed. Now, some own it um, soon enough, and they go back, instead of pointing fingers and criticizing the whole systems out there and everything. They go back and then see how they can manage to go through a transformation, relate to matters differently, relate to qualities differently, and respond appropriately to all of those matters um, beyond their full control. And so there are patterns that work and there are patterns that they don't work. Yeah. Now, so I had put all of this as much as I could in this story, and as I said, this is a story of becoming, the emergence of being is going to continue. In this book, Yoren gets present to his being in a way for the first time, and he goes through this kind of a journey. And I would highly recommend you, if you found this whole series that we had so far in module one, the groundwork, useful, if it makes sense to you. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to make sense in full. Like, there's so much beneath what we briefly touched on in these couple of episodes. Like, there are people in our community that they invested a tremendous amount of time in years, months and years, doing programs, way more advanced programs that we have, and not only they're benefiting from the programs, but also they benefit from the existing community, very, very active and unique community of coaches, practitioners, and people, entrepreneurs and business people. The leveraging from the framework and the content that is being produced. And my commitment is to continue production of these content. There's more books and content that are coming out, which will let everyone know as we go. But yeah, so I would like to encourage you to look into the story of Urine. I think that you would find something to resonate with. It's on all different platforms. You can have the physical book, you can have the audio book on almost all platforms, and the digital version is also there. Um, One last thing before come back to you, Enrique, is where to from here. So there are um, so basically one thing that we're going to do once this module is finished, this episode 14, myself and Enrique, we're going to continue weekly sessions from here onward towards the end of 2024 this year. And we will be talking about tangible, concrete leadership challenges here and there. Where, different leaders and particularly business people and team leaders they deal with. So we're going to discuss them. It's going to be way more conversational. We hope that the people that are going to watch them they have gone through this groundwork so that we have this mutual language so that they can maximize the benefit they can gain out of that. So those episodes are going to be created towards the end of this year. Then Enrique, and here and there we may have other guests joining us. So I know that I've talked so much, particularly in this episode and then in the previous episodes. The commitment is to have a more conversational style from module two as we go through the tangible challenges, and I'm pretty sure Enrique will have you contributing way more there. And thank you for your patience, and thank you very much, everyone, for being with us. So we're going to continue all these episodes I've said, and then also we're going to have Arya Chirasi, um, the director of Ingenesis Ventures, as you've spent some time with him in two of the episodes that we had, going and talking about self-discovery course and being profile. So Arya in a separate video has created the different pathways from here for those of you if you're interested in becoming an accredited practitioner using the being um, profile and the being framework in your business. If you are coaches, seasoned coaches, you want to leverage what the framework has to offer and the ontological um, assessment tool, the being profile. If you're going to leverage the programs that we have around coaching, and also if you are a business owner, found part of the founding team of a startup, SME, or you work in corporations and you lead a team, we do have certain offerings so that you can adopt and leverage the framework programs like influence programs, and there we have exclusive programs that particularly I run myself. For example, Being Mastery that goes for over a year, and yeah, there are pathways from here, and not limited to what I've just mentioned briefly. Arya has that all in a separate video on a Genesis YouTube channel. We'll put the description here. We would put the link in the description, and I'm pretty sure if you want to, go and then check them, you can. And there is a support team behind all of these things that we do, and they can reply back to your inquiries. Enrique, I'll pass it over to you. Any final conversation you want to have?
No, thank everybody for joining us these last 14 episodes for this groundwork module that we have created. I'm looking forward to the second phase of this where we start talking about the things that really plague or hurt those leaders in the corporate world and all the guests that are coming. Want to remind everybody one last time as we go through this that the In Genesis course, this is a complimentary course on in Genesis that you can join us. And I encourage everybody to sign up. You'll be able to receive all of the modules and go through them at your pace. But thank you, Ashcan, for taking us through this journey up until this point and detailing this roundup, right, of all the things that we've covered until now.
So, in order for us to be able to fund all of these things that we're doing and creating all these contents, books, and everything, there are a good number of people in our community that they contributed through attending our programs, paying for those programs, many of the programs. So basically, I would like to acknowledge all of the people that they have been involved in internally in our team. There's a countless number of people. If I want to name them, I'm afraid I missed names. There are countless number of people that they directly and indirectly contributed in the creation of all of these content. It's not just me. I would like to acknowledge all of them, all of our the people in our community, the executives at Genesis and the Being Profile and subsidiaries of Genesis, um, and the fact that we had managed, we were it was possible for us to make all of these things available. It was impossible without their contribution. So from now we have all these free resources that it was not available in the past, and it's quite important for me to communicate this to all of you, our audience, that um, there are these functions that I could see as a thinker, and on a daily basis we were seeing so much of that in multiple different layers and scales, like from societal matters to political issues to economical matters, and so on, all the way to our life individually. And there are things now deep down deep there, it hurts my heart. And I don't know how much of a contribution my body of work is, but I hope that I have taken one little step towards addressing, or at least articulating some of these deep problems that we deal with as humanity. I hope that this body of work and the rest of the work that will come out helps humanity in different forms. Again, I would like to thank you for being with us so far, and hope to have you there watching and contributing into our next episodes from here.